Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and it is April of 2020, and by the great Yizmir, did this month take forever. I don't know what it is about April, but it seems like this month has just drug on and on and on. Hell, the whole year feels like it's drug on and on and on. This year didn't get off to a very good start for me personally, and it's gotten worse for everyone else. Holy crap. I remember in a February live stream, Rainick actually mentioned something about some Chinese virus thing. I wasn't even paying well, I was paying attention to what he was saying, but it was like, oh, Chinese virus, it's going to be like the swine flu. It's going to be something that's flavor of the month and it's going to be gone. Well, it seems like that's a hilarious in hindsight sort of thing. I had no idea that it was going to get this bad. One of the biggest problems with this whole virus thing is there's so much conflicting information out there. And it's one of those things where you don't really know. It's like, well, did all of this quarantining actually do anything? Or was it an overreaction? I don't know what it is. I just think it's still kind of a crazy concept all around. And just the sheer number of changes that this whole virus has wrought. I mean, growing up throughout the years, I heard about, H1N1, SARS, and all that. And it's like, you hear about that on the news and you promptly forget it. And this virus here, it's like, you can't really forget it. It's kind of crazy. Like, when you go out in public to various places, it just feels kind of, you feel kind of nervous. You don't want to touch anything. You want to have your mask on. It's just like, that is just weird to me, just how much has changed in the last 4 months. Actually, not even 4 months, last 2 months due to this whole thing. And I have not suffered nearly as much as a number of people that I know personally, which is weird in and of itself. I mean, you hear about SARS and H1N1, it's like, oh, that's something happening somewhere, who knows where, Whereas here, it's like, it's there! Oh my good God. It's a crazy concept, to say the least, and I hope all of you are being as careful as possible not to spread it or get it yourself. Because while it's been said that maybe there's more of an overreaction than not, it's best to err on the side of caution just all the same. So with all that unpleasantness out of the way, what's going on for reviews? Well, Turok 3 is going to be out very soon, hopefully at the end of this week. And the only reason it wouldn't be at the end of this week is because there's a lot of editing to do. That is a long, bloody game, to say the least. Much longer than I thought it was going to be. Turok 3, I don't know why I never played it back in the day, but it was well worth the wait. Now, in the review, I am going to say that it's not as good as Turok 2, and there are a few generic elements to Turok 3, but it's still a damn good game. And I'm also going to mention in the review that there needs to be a remastering of it, because with modern-day PC controls, a number of complaints that I had about the game will pretty much be gone. Also, if there could ever be a ROM hack or a patch or a mod that lets you have more bloody health packs, the game would be even better still. But ultimately, you can imagine it's going to be a fairly positive review. The Turok series as a whole has been fairly good throughout the decades it's been around. I'm going to mention that too. So overall, I'm quite pleased that I'm going to finally get that review out. I didn't get it out in January like I'd like just because of a loss of motivation, but I got some motivation back, and hopefully it will take your mind off of all the various unpleasant things happening these days. Now, after Turok 3, I've got some fairly short reviews I'm going to put out. Although the first of those reviews will actually be a bit longer than the usual short review. A fan a few weeks ago in a live stream was asking why I never did any Dreamcast games. And I thought I'd done some, but in the 11 years of doing YouTube, I've only done a grand total of 2. And those weren't even Dreamcast exclusives. The first one I did was the port of Metal Slug to the Dreamcast, which is basically just a port of the Neo Geo CD version of Metal Slug. And I did that 11 years ago in the year 2009. I'd recommend watching that just to see how far I've come. The other review I did was of Sonic Adventure, but that wasn't even of the Dreamcast version. That was the PC version that had been modded. So I don't know why there was a bit of a blind spot for the Dreamcast, seeing as how I'm a big fan of it. I have one, but sadly it's died. It'll turn on, but the disk drive seems to be broken, which is kind of depressing. Because I really quite like that console. I still remember when I got it back in 2008, which is 12 years ago. I basically asked the people at the game shop, like, should I get the Dreamcast or should I get the TurboGrafx 16, and they were like, "Get the Dreamcast." It's like, "Yep, I'm glad I went with the Dreamcast." These days, of course, you can play it with RetroArch. You can get 16 by 9. What's funny is before it worked in RetroArch, I was actually going to do a review of Sonic Adventure with the Dreamcast with that VGA out box. I was going to buy that. Sadly, the Dreamcast was broken, so I just got the PC version. I think that was a far easier prospect anyway. So the three Dreamcast games I'm going to do are Dynamite Cup, which is by far my favorite game on the Dreamcast. Dynamite Cup is a beat 'em up, and it was very, very impressive back in 1999. It's aged a bit, but it's still pretty damn fun. It's really difficult, so definitely you want to use save states. But it is just so good. I remembered it for so many years, because that's the game where you get to beat people up with baguettes. It was awesome. Turns out that's actually a sequel to a game called Dynamite Deca, which would later be ported over to the US as Die Hard Arcade. I actually going to show some footage of that, because it does work on MAME, mostly. And it's actually pretty good. There's some graphical garbage in there due to running on MAME, but it runs well enough, and it's still pretty bloody fun. So I'm going to talk about both of those games in that review, and obviously it's going to be a very positive review. Now, the other two games are not going to be quite as positive. Zombies Revenge was a game I never heard of until I did it in a... I did it for I live streamed that game due to a recommendation from Rainick. And it's a game that I thought I would like, and when I played it for like 15 minutes, I did like it. But when I actually sat down and played it to get the gameplay footage, I found myself getting really, really frustrated with it. The big problem is it's a very, very tough game. The enemies do a considerable amount of damage to you. The controls, to me, feel very sluggish and unresponsive. And there's no health power-ups, like, at all in the game. Some of the zombies are armed with, like, firearms, shotguns, and things of that nature. And, actually, I said that kind of weird. Whatever. They're armed with those firearms. Oh, yeah. Although you probably will say that because if they shoot you, like, once, it takes, like, half your health bar. It's ridiculous. Getting through it with save states is still pretty difficult because you can die really easily, and since it's a home version of a arcade game, you get limited credits, and it's very easy to run out before you get to the end of the game. I found it to be a thoroughly aggravating experience. I'm not going to say it's a bad game because, as the AVGN says, just because something's hard doesn't mean it's bad. But yeah, I didn't enjoy it that much. It's impressive for what it is, but I think that's a game where you need to play it co-op, and it does have local co-op. If you play it co-op, maybe it might be more manageable, but I just didn't really enjoy it all that much. The next game is substantially better, and that game is, of course, Cannon Spike, which is a weird name. It's very Japanese. It's a Capcom game that features a bunch of Capcom characters such as Cammy, Arthur, Mega Man, who's supposed to be a hidden character, but he showed up immediately. And basically, it's a top-down shoot-'em-up game. And it's a lot of fun. It's actually kind of a boss rush game as well, because you fight quite a few bosses in that game. It's not as difficult as Zombies Revenge, but you can still die fairly easily, but thankfully there's plenty of health. But you get 3 credits. 3 deaths. And that game is tough. Even with save states, it was bloody hard. I think, once again, if you had a second player, it might be a little easier. But still, it's pretty easy to see why those two, at least, were stuck on the Dreamcast. Whereas Dynamite Cup really deserved a much wider release than it got. I'd like to play a more modern-day version of that with modern graphics, because that is a damn good game. It is a ridiculously hilarious game on top of that. It's very, very... All 3 of those games are very Japanese, and even though Zombies Revenge is really aggravating, it definitely has that late 90s Japanese charm to it that is just hilarious. In addition to those, I'm going to continue on with my book reviews. As mentioned a number of months ago, I was going to do the modern-day Aliens novels, and I'm still going to do that. I took a break on the... Well, I didn't start those, because I wanted to do all of the Doom novels to coincide with Doom Eternal. So I'm going to try to get at least 2 out in May, along with 2 game reviews. Also, after after May, I want to also start focusing on some Star Wars reviews as well. Specifically of the final Star Wars books. I kind of started that a few months ago, but once again, it kind of got sidetracked by life and the Doom novel reviews. Because I really do want to talk about Honor Among Thieves. That is, as far as I can tell, the last Star Wars book ever published. The publication date is March of 2014, whereas Darth Maul Lockdown is January of 2014. And if Honor Among Thieves is the last Star Wars book, they sent Star Wars out with a bang. It is that good. I don't want to... I've already talked about it, but it's a Han Solo-centric story. It introduces a new character named Scarlet Hark, who's basically a hot female character who does not show up Han Solo, but instead works with Han Solo to advance the plot. And yes, I'm well aware of Star Wars The High Republic. I mean, they're just trying to piss off the fans, aren't they now? What's wrong with calling it the Old Republic? I'm sure I can get like a whole paragraph of, it's because it's the high Roman era of the Republic or something. I don't even know. Just call it the Old Republic. And the fact that they're going full frontal with the politics, honestly, I didn't even like Mandalorian that much. I don't really care because to me, Star Wars and Star Trek are pretty much dead and have been for years. So let's see, anything else, ladies and gentlemen? How long have I been going? 23 minutes. Well, since everyone's stuck inside anyway, I guess I should give you some more content. And the more content is this, a book recommendation. And that book recommendation is The Third Wave Eidolon. It is a independent science fiction book. Basically, it completely reinvents the zombie concept. And what I'm about to tell you is not a spoiler, because it's the whole reason why I got the book in the first place. I mentioned this in the live stream, but if you didn't catch that stream, I'll tell you here now. Essentially, in this book, it's set now, and there is a coronal mass ejection that shuts down all the electronics. And then there is an experiment at CERN. And at CERN, right when that power goes off, they're doing this experiment, and when that happens, they lose containment, and there's this third wave that comes out. And that basically sucks the souls out of like just about everyone, except for a couple million people who have their souls partially attached to their body, and that drives them insane and they become partially soulless zombies. It is a cool concept that it's creepy. I'll tell you that. It's one of the creepier concepts out there. To think that like your soul is like partially hanging onto your body, that's pretty cool, to say the least. Fairly well written. It's a little bit rough in places. You can definitely tell it's an independent book. But from start to finish, it hooked me. I read it in about 2 days. And it's what I like to call a 3 o'clock read. Well, it would be a 3 o'clock read if I could stay up till 3 o'clock these days, but it's definitely well worth reading. Alright. I am GeneralLotz, wishing you good fanfic and good third wave Eidolon, or whatever makes you happy. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and if you can, please consider supporting me on Patreon so that I can continue bringing you this awesome content.